In 2008, decided to go on a mission trip to Liberia. I didn't really know why I was going, honestly. I didn't really understand the scope of work that we were supposed to be doing while we were there. But we got on the ground, and several days into the trip, I knew right away why I was there. 67 kids. The conditions there were unlike anything I'd ever seen. It was terrible. Their physical condition was very poor. I don't know how they were about to eat their next meal. Did I know going into this trip that a 10-day trip was going to alter my life forever? No, but that's what happened. We launched Orphan Aid Liberia in September, so right away. It's turned into 2010. We were able to build them a new school, new dorms, install solar power, millions of meals, massive amounts of needed medicines. Then in 2014, Ebola hit Liberia really hard. It was a super dark time, and I knew that children were losing their parents and had nowhere to go. So I flew over. We went out into the field, into the hardest hit communities, and we took in hundreds of kids that had lost their parents due to the Ebola virus and placed them into foster care. Not really knowing how we're going to care for them, but believing that God's going to provide. It wasn't too long after that we launched with a love shirt. Man, it just blew up. It blew up. People got behind the work. I think they understood the mission, but it turned into millions of meals. When we see people wearing it, it's just much more than a piece of fabric. As people put these shirts on their backs, we're putting meals into the kids' mouths. So as an organization, Orphan Aid Liberia has changed a bit as God has presented new needs to us. We really want to remain faithful to that calling. And as God presents those things to us, we want to step out in faith and take action.
So at Orphan Aid Liberia, we began to look at, we weren't just involved in orphan care. Things like deworming treatments, malnutrition clinics, anti-trafficking initiatives, pastoral training. So we began to explore what God was calling us to, that it wasn't just Liberia. We grew to work in the Philippines, we were doing work in Burkina Faso, and Ecuador. And even here locally in Georgia, our work has expanded just around the community. And as we saw that God was providing more opportunities to work, we could feel that there was a pull to something else. In Matthew 25:40, Jesus says, "As you've done unto the least of these, you've done unto me." And what he's saying there is, as you've done for the people who've been forgotten, the abandoned, the broken, the left behind, the hungry, as you've done for those, that you've done those things unto Christ. And what God is calling us to is, as we can connect to that commonality, God is calling all of us to work together to the people who have been forgotten, neglected, and abandoned. So that led us to Orphan Aid Liberia to think about what God was calling us to, what the Holy Spirit was beckoning us to, and that was a name change. And that was where LIVE2540 comes from. Now, Orphan Aid Liberia is not going anywhere. Orphan Aid Liberia still exists. Our work in Liberia for the kids and the people there is still going to be a big piece of our heart. LIVE2540 is the tree and Orphan Aid Liberia is the branch. So the work there will continue, but we just don't want to limit what God is calling all of us to do collectively, because God is calling us to participate in some big things, and LIVE2540 is the vehicle that we're going to do that with.
So if we each individually live out Matthew 25:40, can you imagine the impact of a collective effort for that little boy or that little girl that is hungry and sick? Is it worth it?